Me, Rory Suchet. Several thousand people have gathered in central Moscow in protest at the results of Sunday's parliamentary vote. The opposition claims that the election was rigged and is demanding a new one. Artisa Nisanawe is standing by live for us right now. Anissa, you are really in the thick of the rally. What's happening there now? What's the atmosphere like?
Well, as we get closer to the evening, it gets colder. Crowds are beginning to thin at what can easily be called Moscow's biggest protest in 20 years. The Ministry of Internal Affairs estimated its highest numbers today at 20,000 in the actual square where the permits were given for this to take place, and about 5,000 in the surrounding areas. It's fair to say that at this point that is not the case. People are slowly making their way either home or to other parts of the city. It's very clear that there's not as many people here now as there were earlier today. Again, like I said, a sanctioned protest, no incidents so far. Earlier today, some opposition members did meet up at Revolution Square, which was what organizers wanted to be the original place of this rally. They didn't get a permit for that, and there has been scattered crowds throughout the day. But again, thousands of people from there made their way peacefully to what is called Bolotnaya Square here, not far from the Kremlin, around the corner, really, on the other side of Revolution Square. And like I said, without incidents, people calling, like you said, for free and fair elections. According to them, last Sunday's Duma parliamentary election was not carried out in that way, although we did hear from the Central Election Committee when they released the final results, which pretty much went along with the preliminary early results, which is what these protests were a reaction to. They did confirm that the vote was fair. There were minor violations, and they will be investigated.
All right, Anissa, so you've heard from the demonstrators there, but what's actually been the reaction from the Russian leadership to all of this?
Well, people came out to protest as early as Monday, on Tuesday as well, and then there were really preparations for this big rally this Saturday. President Medvedev and Vladimir Putin both supporting the idea that every Russian has a right to come out and voice their opinions, make demands of their government if it's done within the law, and it has proven today that so far that has been done. But we heard some strong criticism from the government, especially from Prime Minister Putin, about comments made from outside of Russia. Most particularly comments from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton that the elections in Russia were neither free or fair. The Russian government sees that as stepping way over the line of Russia's right to hold its own elections and have its own democracy.
Anissa, you talk about the role of U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton there, but we have evidence of documents now revealing that expose Washington's hand in trying to discredit the election. What more can you tell us about that?
It does, and this evidence really supports Prime Minister Putin's claims. Life News, which is the Russian publication, on their website you can very clearly see emails which were written between Golis, which is an observing commission that did take part in these elections, which found these so-called violations, email transactions between them and the Department of State. Of course, maybe a coincidence that those comments came from Hillary Clinton, and this is a connection with the Secretary of State, but they're funded partly by them. And there's also evidence of observers actually trying to confirm how much they would make for each and every violation that they find. Golis didn't deny the claims. They did say that they would launch legal action against Life News because the emails were obtained illegally, but they did not deny that these emails were in fact between observers and the U.S. Department of State.
And Anissa, other than emails that you're discussing there, we understand you have some murky details about how the Western media has been covering these events.
Well, the details, of course, are available to everyone. Fox News this week clearly showed pictures of Athens, Greece, which has been in protest throughout this year. Yes, perhaps more entertaining, much more lively pictures, but clearly not Moscow, although they titled them as Moscow. You had CNN showing pictures of a rally that took place a year ago, a nationalist rally which got violent just outside the Kremlin. They then filed a correction, but most certainly if you compare Western news to what you can actually see here in Moscow, it's a little bit of an exaggeration as to what's happening. Today is the first day that we've seen tens of thousands of people out on the street. Throughout the week, it has been relatively calm here, and it's clearly not the impression that the Western media has been giving, whether or not that's intentional or not.
Now, Anissa, you're there in central Moscow, but the rallies haven't been confined solely to the Russian capital. Where else have they been happening?
We saw rallies take place across Russia this Saturday, beginning way out east in Vladivostok, throughout central Russia, and also in St. Petersburg. In St. Petersburg, there was reports of minor scuffles with police, and we're hearing that around 10 people were arrested. Not the case here in Moscow so far today, but really those who are calling for free and fair elections did come out in some numbers across the country. Obviously here in Moscow, the biggest numbers we're seeing out on the street.
Anissa, can you tell us a bit more about the opposition here? Who are the leaders in charge?
Well, first of all, there's no real leaders of this particular protest. There's different organizations. You can see a rainbow of flags have been here today, and a lot of people not associated really with any particular party. But the two most well-known leaders, I think it's fair to say, are Boris Nemtsov, who's been in Russian politics for years. He was the former deputy prime minister. His party did not qualify for these Duma elections. He was at these protests today. He went to the unsanctioned protest earlier and then made his way here. He got a lot of attention from the press, people surrounding him. And really what he's known for, and he himself doesn't deny it, is his connections to Washington. First of all, he often makes trips there and meets with congressmen. Second of all, he's openly supported by the endowment for the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington. And then there's, I think it's fair to call him a rising opposition star, not affiliated with the party, Alexei Navalny. He was arrested on Monday and is being detained for 15 days. He's known for his anti-corruption movement. He's a very well-known blogger here in Russia, not so famous in the West. What people who do report on him tend to not talk about his real nationalist line. He's known for giving speeches about how Russia is for Russians. And if you take a look at some of the footage from Monday's protest, some of the speeches that he made, and look closely, some of the things he was saying could clearly be classified as hate speech. One of the things he said, which can clearly be quoted, is, "I will go and cut their throats," and sort of stuff like that. So that's something that you don't hear much about Alexei Navalny. And he is becoming more and more popular, and I think it's fair to say we'll be hearing more and more about him, certainly in the Western media. But a lot of people here not affiliated with any political party, and like I said, numbers are dying down as it gets darker and colder.
All right, Artis Anissa, now we're there live in central Moscow. Thank you.